Good evening and welcome back to the Same Old Arsenal podcast. This isn't a post-game show. This isn't a pre-game show. This isn't a show that I ever wanted to ever do. Absolutely not. But tonight it is all about our Super Kev, Kevin Campbell, remembered. And joining me are two of his wonderful, lovely friends. And the only reason I know them is through Super Kev. So to the left or right, I don't know what side. I've got Red Nose John Simmonds. Welcome, John.
Hi, Amanda. Thank you for inviting me on.
And the sad part about this, John, is we always said, didn't we, me, you and Kev, we're going to do a pod
Absolutely.
when Arsenal
Yeah.
played Liverpool. And if it teaches me anything, it teaches me never to wait. And below me, the most fabulous, wonderful Evertonian is Mr. Alan Myers from Sky TV as well, who has a massive affinity with Kev and friendship. So we are going to go through that. Welcome, Alan, to the show.
Thank you. Thanks, Amanda. I appreciate it. As you say, it's not something we wish we were doing, or we wish we weren't doing it. But sadly we are, and and I think we should as well. But I think also it's a night where we should remember the great things that we remember about Kev. Of course, it's a tragedy and it's sad, but he brought so much to so many people. I think not just us, not just the people he knew close. Virtually everybody he touched, he meant so much to everybody, and the outpouring of love and the many tributes that we've seen, are testament to that. And I think Kev would enjoy, watching along tonight if he could, and I hope he is.
I think that's a really good point, Al, that, we've gone through a lot of deep sadness after the events of the last few weeks, and we've all grieved and done whatever, and that will continue. But that was a life well worth celebrating, and I think that bit needs to be done as well. And maybe this is an opportunity to, celebrate his 100%. Life rather than just be sad about it.
Yeah, and we're going to remember him for everything wonderful that was Kevin. And what I've absolutely loved is the outpouring. I've never seen anything like it. I'm not even being dramatic, and I know people think I am dramatic. I've never seen anything like it. I've got hundreds of Evertonians that follow me now. I've got people that are sending me their Dickie Bow Thursday pictures, and I must mention we did not plan this for a Thursday, but it is Dickie Bow Thursday. And every Thursday feels like a Kevin day because of the Dickie Bow, what he wore and why he wore it. We'll get to everything, because I think we're going to just jump backwards and forwards. Now, let me just talk about how I know Kevin. And these two are I only know these two because of Kevin. So,
and actually, Amanda, we only know each other because of Kevin, me and Al.
Yeah, I think all of us. He brought us all together for different reasons. Alan's been on a podcast a couple of times with me before, and it's always been a pleasure talking to Al. It's always normally about Arsenal and Everton, and we'd always get a little bit of Super Kevin because obviously he played for both clubs. But what was so special about Kevin was everything. I can't actually go into the smile, the charisma, the wonderful kindness, everything, but because obviously I'm the Gooner part of this podcast, Kevin was born a Gooner, played for the Gooners as well, as much as Everton and his other clubs. I met him when I was 17. I think I was 17 at a junior Gunners party or some Christmas party for Arsenal. And I have a picture of me and Kevin. I haven't uploaded it tonight. We are going to get to all the pictures. I didn't even know 30 years later that Kevin and I would be on a podcast together. I used to sit at Highbury with my feet over the seats, doing the slow hand clap in the 80s. And Kevin was an Arsenal player. And to have the absolute, oh my God, incredibleness of being on a podcast with an ex-Arsenal player, which we will get to in a moment, it's just made everything for me. So although I didn't I didn't know Kevin then. It was just a football player at a party. I had a picture done, a couple of pictures. And I remember years later showing him those pictures, saying, look, we met when I was 17. Now, Kevin was quite vocal on social media. He followed me, I followed him, and bang. And I was looking at my old messages. I DM'd him and said, thank you so much for the follow. We'd like to invite you on the podcast. And obviously I was on the girls' podcast at the time that I'd set up. He was like, yeah, lovely, I'll come on. Well, the rest is history, because then it became Hybrid Squad. And obviously I left Hybrid Squad and he stayed, and he's absolutely adored by the squaddies there. And obviously Sophie and everybody else on that podcast. But what I loved about Kevin, and although he was upset I left, we stayed friends, everything was the same, is that when I started this podcast, I asked him to come on, and I'm going to show you, we're going to start with some pictures. And he came onto a podcast and he really, really helped me. If you just bear with me, everyone, because I'm not good with IT stuff. Here we go. So this was a podcast of me, my dad, and Kevin. And look at that smile. That is Kevin all over. And Kevin was going to stay 20 minutes and help us out. And then me and my dad were just going to talk about the old times. Of course, that didn't happen. There was problems with my dad's technical side. Kevin helped. He stayed the whole show. That was the last time we were on a podcast together. Look at my smile. Look at Kevin's smile. We loved podding together. We loved it. Obviously, being very Arsenal, we used to mess around and everything together. But he helped me out that night, guys, because it was going to just be me on my own, because my dad couldn't log on properly, and then eventually did. He was so respectful to my dad. And yeah,
I was just going to say, Amanda, I was just going to say, you could see your smile, you could see Kev's smile, and you could see your dad's confusion into what on earth is going on there.
He's
I suspect Vanda's dad's been perpetually confused since the day she was born, Alan, to be honest.
And we know for a fact that if Kev heard you say this, he'd be laughing as well. Yeah. But my history with Kevin, and right up to May, when he was ill, and I kept in contact and, prayed for every message that he would return my messages, and, prayed he would get better. Nothing changed. He used to take the mickey out of me all the time. Listen, he was 6 months younger than me, which is heartbreaking. And we always used to joke that I'll always be older than him and he needs to respect his elders. And we just messed around all the time. And I obviously was known as Princess Guna on Twitter. And he called me PG. And that was it. That stuck for years. And just moving back to that podcast, we said to Kevin, who do you want to bring on? Bring one of your friends on. And hence, below came Alan Myers. And I remember him saying to me, I'll get Big Al on. I said, who's Big Al? He said, Alan Myers from Sky. I said, why would Alan want to come on our podcast? He's like a Sky person. He's a pundit, or, wherever he is, a reporter. And you know what, Al? And we'll now join to you. I loved our podcast together. It was me, you and Kevin. It was just so fantastic, wasn't it? It was just easy. Everything was easy. So
do you know what was good about him, though, in that respect, was that I remember the podcast, of course, and he was argumentative, and he put his points across, and the friendship sort of went out the window, for the professional side of it, and that was the beauty of Kev. You talked before about, how you describe him. I mean, I'll tell you, the way to quantify Kevin Campbell was, or is, that he was everything that was good in life. Everything that you could think of, manners, professionalism, humor, you name any good quality, and Kevin had it, and that is how I quantify Kevin. And that's why there's been such an outpouring, is because everybody saw that. There was nobody who didn't see the good side of Kevin, and the reason everybody saw the good side of Kevin is because that was the only side he had. I've known a very small number of players and people, managers and things like that in football who I haven't liked. Very very few, not even half a dozen. And I've known a load of people who I've liked and I've got on and I still speak to today. And then I've known, 3 or 4 people who really were good friends and were special to me, and believe me, Kevin is way out in front of that. He is the best person I've ever met in my life in my job. Simple as that.
Absolutely loved you, Al. And I'll go into my trips to Manchester when I get to John, because I met John up there. But the way he used to talk about you, I mean, just Big Al this, Big Al that. He loved you. And I'm going to do some of your pictures now. So if you want to explain, let me just get a few up. Right, let's talk about this one. As we know, Kevin absolutely loved playing for Everton.
Yeah, that was when I was manager of Everton, that one. Well, but just let me tell you the story of that. I was leaving that season. That was the start of the season when I was about to leave Everton. And I was very unhappy about leaving. It's been well documented that I didn't want to go. But for a number of reasons, I had to. And Kevin knew this. Kevin, out of all the players, and there were a lot of players at the club who were friends with me, who knew me well. And out of all the players, Kevin was the one who realised what was happening and acted on it, and there's a couple of things which I'll explain later on, but that particular picture, we were taking the team shot, on the pitch, and at the end of it, they started to sort of break up, and Kevin said, hang on a minute, because of course he was captain, and he said, let's get Big Al in as manager, because he knew that I was leaving in a couple of days or a couple of weeks it was, and then he called me over, and Walter and Archie got out of their seats, and they let me sit next to Kevin, and I still have the picture, and but it was more the gesture, again, including people. Kevin was extremely inclusive of everybody, and I said it before, that he almost had a radar for people who needed that little bit of special treatment. He had this fantastic ability to pick out an underdog, and somebody who needed a little bit more, of a fillip, whatever you want to call it. But he was unbelievable, and that day he was, and that day he did it. And we talked about captaincy, and I looked when you talked about Dickie Bow Thursday. I thought about wearing one today, and then I thought, you know what? I can't carry it off like Kev did. I don't think anyone can carry a Dickie bow off like Kev did. So I thought I'd leave it to him, to have the Dickie bow. But what I did do, and there's my captain's armband. I'm wearing my captain's armband tonight. That was the captain's armband he gave me before I left the club, with a lovely special personal message on the other side, So I'm wearing that tonight. I hope he doesn't mind.
So talk to us about this picture then. When was this?
Well, that one, would you believe, we were both in our early days at Everton. That was, we used to have this big night out with Everton at the Adelphi Hotel, which I'm sure, Red Nose will know. And he may have even had a few nights in there, who knows, I don't know. But no, John will know the Adelphi, and a huge, big thing. And they used to have this every end of every season. They used to have this big get together in the Adelphi of all these players and have them all lined up. And I said to Kev, "Come on, come down and have a few drinks and come in and like I say, never ever said no. Straight there, no problem, Big Al, I'll see you there. And all that. And that was just before we had like a little drinks reception, and we went in there. But it was chaos. It was a chaotic night. It always was. They were dancing on tables before the soup arrived. In that night, it was fantastic. But Kevin loved it. He absolutely loved. He loved a party. I've got one story later on. I'll tell you about when we went away to a pre-season friendly, and and what Kev got up to that night, and there was so many of those things. So that was that night, and that was in the Adelphi. But he was, I have to say, looking so trim there and ready to go.
So, and
who's that? You, Al? You're talking about?
No, not me. No, definitely not. I've never looked trim in my life, John.
I keep forgetting that you're Liverpool and he's Everton. I forget because obviously it's all just about Kev, but it is fun.
I'll never forget that.
Don't worry,
no, I never forget it.
We'll get to that. So this one,
Amanda, can I just make a comment about that before Al goes on to his next picture?
All right, let me hide it and I'll bring it back.
Sorry, but very, very quickly, because I think that's quite a key point. You got the connection, the Arsenal connection with Kev. Obviously, grew up, he's a massive fan, then went to Everton, became a hero there, loved by the fans there, and Al's got that connection. But just going back to something Al said there, just struck me then for a second that I'm obviously, Everton's obviously are our biggest rival, so there's a lot of banter and everything there. But what Kev embodied and actually sort of like introduced me to a lot of blue friends, probably foremost of them maybe Al, is there was never any bitterness in any of that. Never when, I was able to walk into Arsenal pubs and Arsenal places that I wouldn't have dared go into without him. I went into, going into the Winslow is not something I'd have wandered in with my red scarf on or something like that, Al, at any stage. But I went in there with him a few times. I never had any issues at all with any Arsenal Everton fans, made some brilliant friends out of them. But that's because Kev had that, and Al's got the same. That there's a line. This is football. This is important to us. This makes our life a lot happier, or a lot sadder. But it isn't life or death. It's actually there's a line where you respect people, and because he had that line, that allowed me to meet people that I would never normally have been able to meet in the environments that I'd never be able to meet. Anyway, look, I'm sorry to cut it across. I just thought Al saying that it brought it home to me a bit.
But what I would say, John, in that as well is that he would take you to that line, though, wouldn't he?
He would. He would. No, he would. And
he wouldn't be nice.
And that's what made it fun, Al. That's what made it fun, because he would push it right to the point before it got nasty. But he knew when to stop it. And but you're right. He pushed it a little bit. They used to some of the conversations used to get heated, but they never got worse than that.
But the thing is, I suppose it's a different connection for me because we support the same club. He played for my club. So I look at him in a different manner. So actually watch a player then become my friend, which I was similar to you, to the Everton connection. It's just incredible to me that was in my life, that because I've supported Arsenal's. Well, I'm 55 at the end of this month. And so for nearly 55 years. So can you imagine how it was for me that, he was a fantastic player for the Arsenal. Super Kev. He used to sing his song before I even knew him, so but I will get on to how...
Amanda, honestly, I'll just say there, that it must be fantastic for you like that. And you have that privilege really of they say never meet your heroes, but this is the exception, that I was in the game, and when you're in the business, you lose. I remember someone coming to the training ground to meet Duncan Ferguson once, and they were shaking. He was a 40-odd-year-old man, and he was shaking, because he was nervous. But when you're in the business, like I've been in for so long, you lose that, and it's sad, really, because you lose that sort of thing. But for you to get this relationship with this hero of yours that you watched, that is incredible, and it says a lot about the man.
Excuse me. And if you read what Andy Love has said, I think Kevin used to wind you up, Amanda. I recently watched the Hybrid Squad where he said he was thinking of loaning you out, which was obviously a couple of years ago. But that's what we were like. We were just naughty. We used to be the naughty ones on there, and we just wind everybody up. And he would always scream, "It's the players," and stuff like that. But just want to go back to that picture. Sorry, I need to find that one. Oh, no, it wasn't that one, was it? It was that one.
That was that one, yeah.
That's pretty, I would have thought, recent-ish or not?
When was that? That was November.
Right.
So it was the sort of last time really we sat and talked, in any, for any length of time. And we spoke on the phone, obviously, since then, and I went to see him, as John did as well. And but that was and someone was talking about it on social media the last couple of days in a bar called O'Shea's in Manchester.
I'm going to get to there, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was just around the corner from where Kev lived, and he'd say, and here's a, for the Evertonians listening, this is Kevin. So we had a week where it was all about the points deductions and and all the rest of it, and I'd spoken to a couple of people, and asked them to do stuff, and because I wanted to get this on TV, about it. And Kevin rang me up and said, "Big Al, I'll talk about the punch deduction. get your camera over, you know. And so it was a Saturday morning. He got up early, you know, we were quite early, come across the pub, had it all arranged for us so we could sit in the pub and do the interview. And he was brilliant that day, you know. He was on top form, and like, I look back, you know, when I see him in the hospital, and I you know, I couldn't believe that I'd been with him in November, and you know, and it was just, you know, it was such a shock. And you know, and a, you know, a lesson to all of us that life can change on a sixpence, you know. And you know, so and I remember leaving. I've thought a lot about that interview and what we said. I've actually watched it back, you know. I got the footage of it and watched it back, and I remember sort of, you know, you remember silly little things, you know. I remember giving him a hug at the end, you know, before I went out to get my car, and you know, and it meant it was just normal then, you know. It wasn't. But now when you look back and you know, you realize how special that was now, and how grateful you are to have had that, and the amount of people that I would go and see, and even friends, you know, and I wouldn't hug them, you know what I mean. But Kev was so tactile, and you know, he would make you feel like you were a proper friend, you know, and that was the beauty of him. And you know, and I'm just so glad that I have that sort of memory in my mind, really.
The last time I saw Kevin was at the Emirates, wasn't Manchester, and I'll talk about that in a moment. He went, PG, I'm outside the Emirates, and I was like 8-9 minutes away, parked up, and then I'd have to get there. It was quite a long walk. He goes, I've got to go in. I said, no, Kev, hold on. I'm coming. And I'm just so pleased that I made that effort to get round, because he was going to go and sit in a box, and he was outside. He was being mobbed by everybody. I literally poured everyone out the way. Said, Kev, big cuddles. There was me, Cole, and him in my last pic with him together the last time I saw him. But I hugged him, and he went, PG, I've got to go in. I've waited for you. He's like, you know, Harry is what Harry used to be like. He's like, I've got to go. And then loads of people wanted pictures with him, and he's just so lovely. But the thrill of being on a podcast with him week after week after week was incredible. Having him on WhatsApp, talking to him about life. We didn't only talk about football on the podcast. You know, he came down to an Arsenal pub, and because Carl was saying to me, when is the first time you ever met him? I don't know. Apart from being 17, I think it was the 12 pins at Arsenal post-match. We'd been on a podcast together for ages. We'd been speaking for ages. I think it was the first time we met 5-6 years ago. I think, I don't know. Because listen, you don't stick in your head the first time you meet someone because you think they're going to be there. It's not a memory you need to remember. But now I'm annoyed I don't remember it. So I'm just going to go through a few of my pictures, John, to bring you in. So, Alan, we know how we met. Kevin brought you on their podcast.
Yes.
And I have to say to everybody that when Kevin passed, me, John, and I call you Lid because of the Scouse thing, but Lid and I'm not going to go into that, but yes, Alan, I must remember to call you Big Al. We all just went in a little WhatsApp group together very quickly as soon as Kevin passed. We all wanted to do a show, but we wanted the dust to settle. You know, we just needed to gather our thoughts together because I think we were all in shock of I couldn't believe it when I was told and got the message. But Alan, you have been, since you've been on our podcast, the most wonderful friend, the funniest person. I love it when you call out the blue and you're talking Everton, you're talking Arsenal, you know, you WhatsApp, you know, you're on Twitter with me. We have a laugh. You remind me of the relationship I had with Kevin. You're always going to be in my life because we've got the Arsenal Everton connection. We've got the Kevin connection as well. And you are one of the most wonderful people I've ever met. And I can't wait to actually meet you in person. And you know, I've always thought that of you. You've always given me your time. You've always retweeted anything I've needed. If I had an Everton question, you was always on hand for me. And the amount of Evertonians that have followed me since this, especially people like the Winslow Hotel that I've never heard of before, because obviously the one place I've never gone is Goodison Park. I've been to Anfield many times, just not Goodison Park, which is very upsetting. But we always said that I'm going to come to Goodison and sit between you and Kev. Do you remember that? And I said, I'll be the rose between the two thorns. But the one thing about Kev I loved, I used to tease him all the time when Arsenal played Everton. I'd always say, go on, Kev, tell all the toffees that you want Arsenal to win. He'd go, shh, PG, shh, PG. He's like this. I'm not saying it. Obviously, I want Arsenal to win, but he loved Everton. And obviously, living up north, he did. And I'm not just saying it for the Evertonians that have tuned in tonight. Absolutely adored you lot. But moving on to how, when I used to come to Manchester, where Kev was based. So how I know Red Nose John is very similar. John, you and I used to banter on Twitter because of Kev. Kev would call you Red Nose. I would jump in, and me and Kev were always against you because you were the mouthy red scouser, hence Red Nose John. So for anyone that doesn't know, John follows Liverpool all over the world. You've been to a lot of Champions League finals, haven't you? Season ticket holder at Anfield. Even though you're a Southerner, you're a massive Liverpool fan. And I suppose for you, with Kev playing for Everton, I mean, the banter these two used to have, just what I used to see, not your own personal friendships. So when we came to Manchester on the last time, and I've been up quite a few times, the very first time I came to Manchester, I think, I said to John, we're going to go out for dinner, aren't we? Me, you and Kev go out for dinner. And Kev went, where do you want to go? And I went, I want to go to San Carlo. I've never been to San Carlo.
That's right.
Do you remember this? And he went, you're such a princess. And I went, I don't live in Manchester. I've heard it's lovely. You can take me there. And actually, sorry, that is a word of a lie. I'd already been with my Man City friends. And I remember saying, I've got to go back to San Carlo. It was beautiful. I loved it. So me and you and Kev were sitting at the bar, and Kev was winding me up, saying, someone special's coming, someone special's coming. And I was like, who's coming to join us for dinner? And it was the lovely Shirley. Now, I didn't know Shirley at all. Shirley sat with us at dinner, and she must have thought, who is this mad southern bird from London who is Arsenal mad, has come up just to see the Arsenal? But Shirley and I clicked, and what a wonderful, wonderful human being. It's going to make me cry because she's now known, she's known as his white mama. She looked after Kevin so tremendously well. And I'm just going to show you a picture of me, Shirley and Kevin. Now, this is in O'Shea's. Now, this was a couple of years later. Me and Shirley were always in contact with each other. Through Kevin, again, I would never have met Shirley. And that night in San Carlo, I remember, and I love you, Shirley. I remember saying to you, I'm exhausted. I've come up from London. Shirley wanted to go home. You two went out on the rash drinking, probably, some hotel. And me and Shirley got a cab back. And I'm
not South Mississippi.
Yes, I remember you going out, and I said, I'm too tired. I've got football tomorrow. And Shirley and I got a cab back to my hotel. And I remember saying to her, it's been an absolute pleasure meeting you. What a wonderful woman. I love her. And I've said time and time again how wonderful she was to Kevin and how wonderful he was to her. And her hurt is beyond anything at the moment. My love to you, Shirley. Because I know you're struggling, of course. But we're all here for you. And Kevin would want us to look after you. That is for absolute sure. Another picture that night is just me and Kevin O'Shea's. It was the same night as the Shirley picture. And then this was in O'Shea's just before Arsenal were playing at Old Trafford. And you were talking, John, about not having any animosity. When we went in O'Shea's in a Manchester pub, Arsenal were just about to play Man United. every Man United fan used to come up to Kevin and talk to him. There was no, I used to stand there and think, oh my God, we're just about to play you lot. They loved him. And a big shout out to O'Shea's as well. Always made me feel very welcome.
Yeah.
Kev loved it there. Kev lived there, didn't he? I mean, just ultimately did. I've got so many more pictures of me and Kevin. I've got videos that he used to send me. My birthday's coming up. It's going to be quite sad. He used to send me a video on my birthday. He used to take the mickey out of me, John, and Al, all the time, saying, "Oh, you're older than me. You're older than me. Look, see, you're getting old." You know, like laughing and joking. I think in a way we were sort of like a brother and sister relationship. You know, taking the mickey out of each other. But John, one of your pictures, I'm convinced I took of you two because this night I this is the night in San Carlo that I was with you both. I'm convinced.
Yeah,
It's
that's
that
right.
night.
I think you did. Yeah.
Because I think I sent you that picture, and I love that of you and him. Now, talk to us, John, because we've gone through me and Al and how we know him. Yours is a different story, so over to you.
Yeah, it is. It's funny, really, because both of you have got quite a strong, a very strong football connection. Because we said before, Kev played for Everton. Al's so, embedded with Everton as a club and also as a supporter. You with the Pods as well, Amanda, have been a massive Arsenal fan. But clearly, Kev and I didn't really have that in common with our allegiances. So they were a little bit juxtaposition. But so we had a different relationship. So Kev and I were met 25 years ago or whatever, and actually our two oldest boys were in the baby school together, when they were about two years old, and that's how we met. Because I used to sort of meet him on the school path. The ladies used to be friends, and if I tell you a funny story about the very first time we met. So my wife invited his wife. The girls got friendly and the boys were very close friends. In the same year at school, became really good little friends. So I think his wife was expecting their second child. But he said, but anyway, my wife invited the family round to ours on New Year's Day, I think it was, for to meet. And I thought, look, what am I going to talk to this bloke about? He's a footballer. I don't play football. He plays for a club that I don't support. And also, when someone comes around and they've been at work, you don't really want to talk to them about their job, do you? So if you came round at night, I want to start questioning you about state agency or this, that, and the other. So I thought, well, I'll talk about anything other than football. And so he turned up and he looked absolutely enormous in the front door. I opened the door and he had a tracksuit on. He looked absolutely enormous. And he had all this stuff because his body was a temple. So he wouldn't have, he only eat salmon. He wanted to skin off his chicken. He wanted this, that. So my wife had gone to loads of trouble to get all this big buffet and everything organised. I'm sure it was New Year's Day or the day after New Year's Day. And they came round and he played earlier on in the day. So he came round the web and we stood there and he was a bit stilted to start with. And I thought, this bloke, won't put anything in his body that food. There I am getting stuck into burgers and all that sort of stuff. And he's sitting there with his bit of skinless chicken and his bit of salmon. So in the end, it just sort of like a bit tense. And I thought, well, I need to break the ice here a bit. So I just thought, look, it's my house. I'm going to do what I want to do. So I said to him, look, the darts final's on. Phil the Power Taylor was playing someone, I think. The darts final's on. I'm going to go switch it on and watch it. I don't know what you want to do. The girls were all chatting in the kitchen. The kids were playing on the floor, whatever. I'm going to do. And he just, that big, beaming smile crossed his face and he goes, Simmer, I thought you'd never ask. And he picks up a bottle of champagne and we went into the other room. And he was off then. They had a bit of time off the football. So he said, I could drink tonight. Drink we did. I tell you, he sent his wife back to the house to get some man of the match bottles of champagne because we wasted all the champagne we had in the house. We listened, we watched the final, we put music on and we talked and talked and talked and just bonded really in a way that I never had done really with anyone else. We just were so similar but had different views. But as Al said, we push it to the wire and he'd push you, but there was a point where it stopped, but it got very, very loud. Both Kev and I were loud. You probably at San Carlo realised that as well. We could be very loud together. And it was like that. And I think the girls in the other room were like, oh, God, are they having a big fight in there? Went in and we were roaring with laughter and whatever. And they ended up staying the night. And I'll tell you, from that point on, I either saw Kev, spoke to him on the phone, or texted him every day until these last few weeks. It was it became look, I can't speak for Kev. Kev had so many people he knew and so many people he was close to. But I can tell you without a doubt, he was my best friend. He was the closest thing to a brother I ever had. I told Kev things that no one else knows, and I think he's probably done the same with me about his personal life. So what the reason we're telling you that is our friendship wasn't built around football. Then football came into it, because we then we start to right. Kev goes, right, let's get onto the football, and then he'd start pitching into me about Liverpool, and that's where all the fun started. I'll tell you a story. Al and I have exchanged a few stories over the last few weeks about Kev's kindness and about him, just the nature of the guy. And this is a story I just remember when I was telling you that last story. That night when we were drinking champagne and wine and whatever, and it all got a bit out of hand, and we were sitting there sort of like having the time of our lives. He said to me, in 4 weeks' time, I'm on Question of Sport. I said, all right, brilliant, right. He said, will you come with me? I'd like to come as my guest. I said, yeah, I'd love to. That'd be brilliant. I've not done anything like that before. That'd be fantastic. Yeah, I'd love to go to Question of Sport. Right, somebody goes, you're in. And we're going to go to Question of Sport. But it was like 6 weeks away, something like that. Anyway, it was never mentioned the next day. Yeah, beer goggles were on the night before. Never mentioned. I absolutely assumed he'd forgotten about it. And I'd have completely understood it, because it was a throwaway comment at 2 o'clock in the morning during a big boozy sort of like bonding session. No, 4 weeks later, 5 weeks later, I get a call. But what funny thing with Kev never forgot anything. So the funny thing was, he rings me, not, oh, do you remember? Just assuming. He goes, right, I've got a car coming to pick me up at blah, blah, blah. Be ready. It's going to pick you up. I said, what's that for? Oh, keep up, Simo. He goes, Question of Sport. I said, all right, okay, yeah, I'll be ready. So we went and we did Question of Sport. That's another story, but we'll never come on to that later, because that grew arms and legs as well. That was good fun. But we then started talking about the football. And as you rightly say, Amanda, he then christened me Red Nose John on Twitter. And everyone had a nickname with Kev. He used to give everyone a nickname. So everyone, Big Al or PG and Red Nose John. And I had about 4. And depending on what mood he was in, some of them probably unrepeatable. But one of them was Red Nose John. And he started that with his banter with me on Twitter. And he got all the Everton fans involved, a lot of the Everton fans involved there, all good nation. And some of them I still am in touch with off Twitter as well, became really good, good friends. And he, I haven't met some of them, but online or whatever, we're good friends. And he started all that, and he deliberately caused ructions. And he texts me sometimes and go, Simo, get on Twitter. I'm going to drop you right in it. And I go, what's he done now? Go on, and he puts something in there with a question mark, and then I go back at him, and it all kick off, and absolutely great fun. And the crowning glory of that, and if the Winslow are listening to this now, there was one day when I went back after, I can't remember who was playing or where we were. So many stories. We ended up, he got me to go back to Winslow for some reason. He goes, let's go back to the Winslow. And we ended up in the Winslow one night, and it wasn't very full. Maybe it wasn't a match day, but it wasn't very full. So it was quarter full, something like that. But I ended up, and someone has got a video somewhere of me with loads of Evertonians around me. And instead of going Super Kev Campbell, they're going Red Nose John, Red Nose John, Red Nose John. And that's what he got going. And he loved that. And he's going, come on, guys, Red Nose John's in the house.
Have you met anyone that loved people? I mean, I love people. I'll talk to anybody. But they loved him as well.
Really? And
one of my dad's things was that he never actually met Kev in person. He only did a podcast with him. And he said to me the other day, I really wish I'd have met Kev. And I said, do you know what? I'm so lucky that I met him so many times and was with him. I didn't have your friendship, John. Al, I didn't have the work side of it. I was just the normal fan that had a fans podcast that said to him, do you want to come?
That's beautiful, isn't it? That's beautiful.
Yeah, we all have such different relationships, but we all feel the same way about him. But John, I just want to go through your pictures because you've got some great pictures. I mean, God knows what was going on here. What is this?
Yeah, Al, you like this one and all the blues that are on here. I'll tell you what this was. We got invited to, I've got season tickets at Anfield. But we got invited, Kev and I, for this one game to go to corporate hospitality for the derby. So we took him up because they weren't that happy they weren't sure about Kev going into the normal sort of like stadium, just in case you got the odd idiot to have a go at him. So we went into the hospitality. And that was the game, Al, where Origi got the goal in the last 5 minutes of added time or something.
Yeah.
And we were sat there, and I tell you what happens. We thought it was a draw, and the atmosphere isn't the same in corporate hospitality. We were both out watching it all the way through, suited, but it didn't feel like normal, like a normal match day, a normal derby day. So kind of with about two minutes left, Kev goes to me, Simon, let's stick a fork in this and go and get a beer. So we went back into the hospitality, and we're stood there, and he's having a bit of a dig at me. I can't remember where we were in the season, but we needed to win it to hang on to the coattails of City or something like that. And he was giving me a bit of jip, saying, well, we've done it again, we don't. And as he's talking to me at the bar, and we're ordering the drinks, there's a TV monitor over my head that he's watching, and he suddenly goes, oh no. And Origi has scored. So as he was sitting there, we sat down on a beer. I found that LFC bag, just stuck it on his shoulder and took a photo of him. But he could have a joke as well. He could see the funny side.
Can I just make 2 points, right? Firstly, I refuse to believe that any evening ever ended early when John and Kevin got together.
No.
First
True.
point. So don't try and say, oh, that was another night went on, and secondly, there was a second point. That's it. I've never known anyone that can take off Kev like John can. It's like he's in the room, honestly.
Yeah.
He was talking to me the other week on the phone, and he was talking. And honestly, I thought I was on the phone with Kevin. It's just incredible, I mean, Kev would have little sort of mannerisms, wouldn't he? That like if I'd say something stupid, he'd go, big Al, and he'd lean back and he'd give a pause, and there's this little pause like that, and you know what was lovely about that was him caring and showing that he cared about. He was almost, it was like a virtual hug, if you like, a virtual come here, and that was the beauty of his, not just the way he was, but his whole persona, his whole radiance, if you like.
Absolutely true.
It just smothered you in everything he did. Like I don't know how, I'm finding it difficult to describe it really. But if ever
you had to experience it, Al. You had to experience it.
Yeah, you did.
Do you know when? So let me just explain. So obviously, this is the Same Old Arsenal podcast. We normally get, this is why I just want to explain to you about the reach Kevin has. We normally have 400 to 500 watching via social media. Tonight, we've just hit over 2,000 people are watching this.
Wow.
Because they all want to hear about your stories with Kev. They love you, Al. They love you, Red Nose. And the fact that this is all just about Kevin, not even about Arsenal. I've not mentioned a thing about my club tonight. And we've hit over 2,000 people because that's how much Kevin Campbell was loved. And
do you think, honestly, Amanda, maybe in future you shouldn't mention Arsenal on the pod and you might get more views?
I'll tell you what,
be quiet. Do you know what?
KC would be a good title.
Same old KC. but you know what?
KC.
It's such a shame, and I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but Al, you've been on a pod, but John hasn't, and we were going to do it. Me, John, and KC, and John was telling me off air that Kev had said to John recently, come on, we got to do a pod with Amanda or PG or whatever, and we it would be just so much fun because
I'd have paid money.
Honestly, it would have been the best. It would have been, none of us would have got a word in. We would have all just been talking over each other. Because when I was with Kevin, I don't know if you remember this, John, when I was in the pub with him, we FaceTimed you down from London, or we sent you a video. I can't remember because it was about 5 years ago. And we were saying, if Liverpool win the league, we're emigrating. Both of us are going. We cannot handle Red Nose John. And you were, I won't say the word, but you were laughing in the background. And that's what we were all like. Even with you, Al, it was all just fun.
His banter was big, Amanda. His banter was big. But I'll tell you, he knew I was a genuine Liverpool fan, that I adored Liverpool and everything like that. And he used to roast me about us not winning the league for 30 years or whatever. But, quietly, when we did, I remember sitting, watching it all afterwards, sitting all the replay, all the repeats of stuff and everything like that. And he rang me and he said, "Look, I wouldn't say this normally, but for you, I'm pleased. I'm pleased that you won the league. You've had that. You've won the league." He said, "And don't ask me to repeat that."
Yeah, I was going to say.
That's not happening. Yeah.
And he would never admit that ever on social media or anything. He would never do a video to do that.
But there was a lot of warmth. I mean, my dad was a big Liverpool fan, which is why I am. But my dad's favourite player, the player that my dad would always have loved to have played for Liverpool, was David Rocastle. And my dad and David Rocastle died a few days apart from each other of the same illness. Yeah. And Kev really got that connection. And he never forgot the date of my dad's death because it was linked to Rocastle. And he loved Rocky. I mean, he loved all those players he played.
Yeah, he did love Rocky.
And I always hear Alan Smith talk about him, and he loved him, and he thought, the stories he had about those days and whatever, I think they were very happy days. But he always remembered that, and he used to always send a message to my mum on the date on the anniversary of my dad dying, and it was linked to Rocky. But yeah, especially Alan said something to me last time we spoke that encapsulated it about how you got the story. I'm not going to take your story, Albert. When you were in the changing room and one of the players made a comment to you about your appearance and whatever, he wouldn't have it, would he? He was just a genuinely kind man.
Yeah.
That's awful, that story.
Yeah, but he would fight for you, and he hated injustices, in life. But he would. I mean, we talked about it. You're talking about something I said, but I always remember something you said, John, when you said that the one thing about Kevin, he would never gossip about anybody, and he didn't like people gossiping. If you rang him up and said, and we all moan, especially in my business, we all moan about other people. That's what football's about. And as you say, John, he'd say, "That's not our business. Don't worry about that. Yeah. That's not our business." And if I rung up and said, "This person's upset me," or I didn't like the way this person did this, and he'd say, "They don't mean it, Big Al. There'll be a reason for it." He always, and it used to make you feel, humble, really, and it'd make you feel like that you were probably not right to do that, but do it in a nice way. You know what I mean?
And do you know what he did out? I mean, a couple of times you reminded me when I was out with him. I could be a bit. Sometimes it takes me a bit longer to relax with someone and get to know them and like them. A couple of times I can just remember one person in particular who will remain nameless, but who I now have a tremendous amount of time for. But met them the first of all through Kev and was a bit not sure about them. I wasn't sure if I liked them, everything like that. And when the guy went to the bar to get the drinks, Kev looks at me, and he did this to me a couple of times, and he goes, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "Nothing." "What's wrong with you? Your face." I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "There's nothing wrong with me." "Well, tell your face then, because your face has got it written. There's something wrong with you." He goes, "Simon, relax yourself. He's a good guy. Relax yourself." And he was always right, because he only attracted good people. So they were. He was a good one. But it's so true what you say. He wouldn't gossip. And I tell you what, Kev, for a big guy who's as strong as an ox and could put it around the football pitch, he didn't like confrontation. He wanted everyone to get on. And he just would avoid confrontation at all costs. He'd try to get everyone together. And I've had a couple of times with Kev where someone said something or something's gone on where I've taken umbrage on his behalf. I've actually thought, "I don't like the way you spoke to him there." And I've been a bit prickly. And, he's waited till there's been a quiet moment. And he said to me, "Oh, no, Simo, let it go. Just let it go. Yeah, it's not worth it. Let it go." He just wanted the night to go well and everything to get on well. He was just a warm, positive force, like throwing a warm blanket over the whole proceedings.
Can I just tell you one story that I'm just so. I'm not very good in the media. I'm not in the media. I'm not media trained. I don't do any TV stuff unless I do the odd Sky thing or BBC thing about the Arsenal. I don't feel comfortable. I love being on here, just talking to normal fans. Alan, I've always said that to you, even though I'm not media trained. I'm not, and you always say, but that's the beauty of you because you're just a natural fan. And that was what Kevin saw. So when I was part of the hybrid squad, we did an event at the Hippodrome where it was Ask Kev. Sophie was in LA and I was the compere I can't tell you how scared I was. This is not my comfort zone. So we met outside in Leicester Square, and he brought along a absolutely beautiful woman called Karin. Karin, I think, is watching today. Now, I don't know Karin from Adam. She don't know
Hi,
me.
Karin.
Hi, Karin. And from the minute I met her, she was all for me that day. She supported me. She loved me. She was pushing me on. She was wonderful. She was Kev's friend. So she was in the audience with my other half. And every time I kept coming down going, am I doing okay? Am I doing okay? I'm not a compere. I can't talk in front of a crowd in that respect to feel comfortable. She was incredible, and we've stayed friends ever since. And it's very true what you said, Al. He only has good people around him, because Karin is beautiful inside and out. But what he did for me that day, Kevin, he whispered to me, "You're doing brilliant, PG, carry on." I can't do his voice, but he's going, "Carry on, you're doing brilliant. Everyone loves you." I said, "They're not here for me, Kevin. They're all here for you." There was a lot, it was wonderful. He supported me. He knew I was so stressed about everything. And yet all he did was make sure I was okay, as did Karen as well. So I've met you, John, Shirley, Karen, all because of Kev. I'm so thankful that the people I've met are all, you're all both, you two I love to pieces.
I
You're
was
always
there
going to
when
be in my
Karin
life.
met Kev. I was there when Karin met
Yes,
Kev,
you said. I mean,
which I didn't know until I spoke to Karin recently. I'd forgotten all about it. But that was a classic example, Al, of we were down going to Ascot. Kev and I did Ascot for about 6 years in a row, and we did about 3 days. Used to do Ladies' Day, 2 days either side of Ladies' Day and Ladies' Day. And we did it for 5 years. We never saw a horse. Never once saw a horse. Or we never got past the champagne tents and all that. But we were, the night before we went, I think it was the night before Ladies' Day, and I don't remember, my memory's a bit shaken, but Karen reminded me of this. We were out with his dad and everyone in Dover Street having a great time, and Karen was there with a friend, and she basically got wrapped up in the whole maelstrom of the Kevin whirlwind that was life, and just got pulled into it. And it was, you're coming with us to Ascot tomorrow with your friend. And she was like, I've got no stuff. We're not real home. Right, you've got to go and get some stuff. You buy it, you do this, that, and the other. You're coming tomorrow to Ascot. And she got roped into Ascot, and then they were friends ever after that. They stayed.
He was a vortex.
They stayed friends.
He
was a vortex.
like,
and do you know what, when he made a friend? Do you know when he made a friend? Do you know what I never heard anyone say about Kev? Is that, you know, if someone piqued his interest, you know, like if he met you, Al, there's a lot of players at Everton, there's a lot of staff at Everton, and some of them, I'm sure you'd say a lot of them just come and go. You had a relationship with them while they were there, and then you never really heard from them again, probably when they left. The one thing about Kev, I'd always say that was a bit unique about him, and you two are both examples of this, you know, Sophie and whatever. So, you know, if you met someone, Karen, if he met someone who he piqued his interest and he liked them, they were never a fair weather. They were never like, oh, well, you were just entertaining for tonight, and now I'll let you go and I won't speak to you again. He had this unique ability to stay in touch with all these people, and he'd drive it. You know, he would say to Karen probably when he left on us, like, you know, I'll give you a text where I'll be in touch with you and whatever later. And you'd think, oh, well, yeah, of course you will. And he would do. He would be in touch, and he'd stay in touch with you forever. And he'd accumulate all these people because he was so genuine. And you can only do that if you're genuinely interested in people.
And I feel absolutely honoured to have met all of you. But John, I don't want to run out of time without your pictures, because we've done ours. So let's do some of yours. When was that?
Oh, no, that. Oh, God, when was that?
It's going to be another story.
God, yeah, that would be. Yeah, they're all stories, as Al said. That didn't end up in our living room. That ended up somewhere else, probably about 3 o'clock in the morning.
Another late one.
Yeah,
another late one now, eh?
I'll tell you a quick story attached to that. We had a big Christmas with the family. My parents, or my mum up, my dad had passed away, but mum up and my wife's mum and dad. And he was in Manchester. And I rang him and said, look, you know, on Boxing Day, what are you doing? And he goes, well, he said, I'm going to go around and see. But I said, why don't you come and spend Boxing Day with us? So he turns up with this big bottle of champagne on Boxing Day, sat down, and he just wowed the oldies. So my mum and my wife's mum and dad absolutely wowed them. And my mum's sister, my aunt, was there. Now, if you think my mum's 92 now, she was probably in her mid-70s when that was taken or whatever. He goes to them. This is what I mean about him sticking to it. So he goes to them. He goes, these two ladies are the two most beautiful ladies I've seen. And they're sitting there chuckling away, two 72-year-old Irish mamas. And he used to call my mum Irish mama. He used to call her Irish mama. So he goes, these two most beautiful ladies. He said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to come around tomorrow and we're going to dress up and I'm going to take you to lunch. So they go, yeah, of course we will. Anyway, sure enough. So after that, the next day after that picture, he pitches up. He's like with all these immaculate suits on, absolutely immaculate. And they're all dressed up because he's rung ahead to say to me, get mama ready. And he took them out and he goes, you don't come Simo. He goes, because I want this to be special with them. He took them down to what was players, just near Manchester, because he knew the guy that ran it. Got them in there, treated them like absolute queens, and then brought them back. And then my mum's never forgotten it. I mean, never ever forgotten it. And he used to send her a happy birthday, Irish mama, every birthday. She's very upset about him passed away. She's very, very upset about it. But I just thought, that he didn't have to do that the next day. There was 70 odd years.
This one, Christmas.
That was actually his son's birthday. I can't remember which birthday it was, but his birthday is very close to Christmas. So it was combined. It was like putting all that sort of stuff on. So we got snapped doing that. That ended up a late night.
There's a shock. Hold on, let me find one that's not a late night.
No, that was as well.
Why do all your pictures have champagne bottles in them? With you both with two massive.
He was always up for a party, so he'd always get loads of stuff in, and we'd always have champagne and everything like that. He was just great.
Tell you,
I will come to you, Al. I'm just going to do two of his last pictures, and then we'll come to you.
There, by the way.
I love that pic. I've not seen that.
The last time I saw Kev was in January in Manchester. I had a pint with him in Manchester, and like Al says, you would never have believed it. A few weeks later, all this started, and I saw him. I can't remember when it was. I was back. I was in Manchester for a work thing, and he came and met me, and I got rid of all the work staff. They went, and then him and I carried on a few drinks. And it's funny you said about the hug. As we were leaving, I leapt to leave him. We always used to hug each other. I hugged him and said, "See you, brother," and he said, "See you, brother." And then as I turned away, he said, "Simo, do you fancy one more?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I know, please." And off we went, and we had a couple more. And I'm so glad we did that. And I then said goodbye to him again and went. But that picture you just put up was the last picture I've ever had with him. That's why I shared it with you, because he came to, we went on holiday to Portugal together. He came on with me on holiday to Portugal. And I don't know where that was at the end of another long day. We took that picture. And that's the last picture I've ever got with Kev. That was our last picture.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
It's just, do you know what? We could go on. I mean, I cannot believe we're up to an hour. I mean, there's so much more to say about the wonderful man, that's been taken from us too soon. Sorry, but go on now.
I was just going to say, you talk about he loved the party, and I'll go back. But first of all, two things. He could cross generations. Very, very quickly, that was the thing. Whether it was somebody who was 8 years of age or someone who was 80 years of age, he would be comfortable in everyone's company. But two things: on the bus, when we used to travel around on the Everton coach, I was known for. I used to carry a small bag with chocolates in, and I used to have curly whirlies, topics. I used to have an array of goodies for after the game, and the manager didn't know, but the players all knew, And I'd go along the bus, and Mark Pembridge would have a cream egg, and David Unsworth might have something, and then I get to Kev all the time, and he'd say to me, and you mentioned it before, his body was a temple. He said to me, "Big Al, just don't eat chocolate. It's full of toxins. Don't eat chocolate. And he'd say, do yourself a favor. Of course, I didn't listen to him, as you can, as you can see, But we were away once. We played Exeter in a pre-season friendly, and we stayed at the race driver, can't think of his name now, Nigel
Mansell.
Nigel Mansell's place. He has a big place in near Exeter, and it was a lovely hotel, big golf course, little museum with his cars, and we stayed there. The team stayed there. So on this night, Walter said to everyone, "You can go out, but staff can enjoy themselves. But players, you need one drink, and that's it. No more than one drink. So anyway, so we all gone for this one drink and everything, and then 3 or 4 of us from the staff, the kit man and a few others, we all went off, and I just followed along, and we ended up at this nightclub in Newquay, You know, I don't even know where it was, but I think it was Newquay. Anyway, so we get in and we're walking around. I was with Jimmy Martin, the kit man, and somebody else, you know, whoever it was, and we heard this big like kerfuffle, you know, across the dance floor sort of thing, you know. So I'm like, oh, what's happening over there, Monday, you know? So I walk over, and there's like a big circle of people, you know, mainly women, you know, and and who's in the middle, you know, doing this dance to a song called Black Legend called "See the Trouble with Me." And there's Kev with his hand up in the air, you know, doing this, you know, to this song, and I couldn't believe it, and it was so funny, you know, to see him. But that was him. He, wherever he went, he was like a pied piper, you know. Wherever he went, the people following him, and he'd have this, and they're not in a, you know, not in the way that you would assume.
No,
Footballers, far from it, you know, because he just oozed good time and you know, nice company.
And Al, you were so right. Not just cut across generations, but don't you think as well? He didn't care what your job was, how much money you had or anything. He could do that with Prince Charles, and he could do it with some homeless person on the street, and he would treat them exactly the same, and he would get them involved. In fact, he'd be more likely to get the person who's struggling a little bit involved. Yeah, he had that, and I remember, and part of the thing you said, and it's so true. But that story. Do you know that people don't know him? Obviously, he was a brilliant footballer. You know, if I could have been growing up as a kid, I'd love to have been a footballer. And he reached the very top of being of his profession being a footballer. But you know, Kev was an incredibly talented bloke. He was a brilliant dancer. If you got to put the music on and dance for on, I'm not saying he wasn't just enthusiastic. He was a superb dancer. He could just stop the room, people watching him dancing in the middle of the room. He could rap like a professional rapper. I mean, I think if he hadn't been a footballer, he could have been a rapper. I then played tennis with him. One blooming sport that I maybe was better than him at, or thought I was. I played him down here. It's almost like playing, Bjorn Borg or something like that. He could just pick a racket up and play. He was just the most naturally talented human being you could possibly meet. And he used that to get people involved. One of the funny things with the rapping, by the way, is I'm a middle-aged white guy in a suit most of the time because I work. And he thought it was very funny to teach me Juicy by Biggie. Yeah. And his party trick used to be sitting there with a group of people when he was holding court. We'd have people there and he'd be laughing. He'd go, and I'd be there because he'd meet me from work or something in London. And I'd be there, suit and boot like that. And he'd go, right, one of us is going to rap Biggie for you. Right. And they'd all look at him and he'd go, God, come on. So I'd start doing Biggie. And all with that. Oh, God, that's what. And that he loved having a little hook that got everyone going then. That was then funny and it's got the whole thing going and he'd bounce off that and get it going. But I'd equally finally say about him, I don't want to just think it was funny because some of the times that I remember that cherished the most is we used to often have a night out or whatever, we'd end up back at a hotel and we'd end up sitting, talking very seriously, having very serious conversations. So he could be very serious. He could be. He was very disciplined. So I don't think this drinking and everything like that. We had partied when it was appropriate to party. He was incredibly professional, incredibly disciplined. He'd do that, but he was also sensitive and very very intelligent and clever and had a view. And I had some of the most thought-provoking conversations with him as well over the years that I will miss. Forever,
oh God, John! Me and him used to argue about Brexit. We argued about everything. I think he used to do a lot of that to wind me up. And obviously, I had a different relationship with him, being female and being annoying to him. It was fantastic. But one of the do you remember, John, when we came to Manchester and we was in O'Shea's? You were there, Shirley was there, and I brought my Man City friends in. Yeah,
you did. That's right.
They'd never met him, but they knew I knew him. And I watched how he interacted with all these strange guys that, gain Man City. He can't stand Man City. He's Arsenal. He's Everton. And I ended up going back to the hotel with Carl because I knew we had an early start for the City game. And he sat with my friends for ages and ages.
Yeah.
He didn't know these people. He knew they were my friends. And I got.
That was one day I couldn't stay. I was flying out somewhere. And I had to leave. And
you left. I left. Shirley left.
I think I was driving.
But he would do that as well.
He would do that.
My friends were saying to me, "What a man! You see him, but you don't. They never met him. They all, most of them are based in Manchester. They'd never met him before. They were like, wow, Amanda, he is incredible." And I think wherever we go, whoever you meet that he met, everyone says the same thing. He was genuine. He had a zest for life. He loved fun. He loved teasing you, John. Absolutely adored you, Al. He probably adored me, and he adores many, many people.
Oh, he did. No two ways about that.
Yeah. No, he was a very special guy, and he had an impact on so many people's lives.
The way I sum Kevin up is that, and this is the reality, is that on the very first day I met him, he cared for me. You know, I remember it. He cared for me, and on the very last day I saw him and I was with him, he cared for me that day as well. And I think that sums up the man's.
It does.
You know,
absolutely sums him up.
Everything.
Yeah.
You know,
none of us are going to forget our memories. I'm never going to delete the messages, the DMs, the WhatsApps, the videos, the pictures. Always going to be there. We'll celebrate his life on his birthday. It's a part of the show now, and I'm going to get upset. It's been absolutely incredible talking to you both. I knew I wanted to do this. I knew we all wanted to talk. We all wanted to get our little bit out. And I'm just a couple of messages. Thank you for everybody in the chat room. Beautiful tribute show, Amanda, Alan, and John. Good that you are there for each other at this time, and through your many happy memories of him, continue to celebrate his wonderful life. And that, although the plan tonight was just to talk about our life with him, this is nothing to do with Arsenal. This is nothing to do with Everton, Liverpool. It's not to do with football. It's the man, Mr. Kevin Campbell, Super Kev, who we'll never forget. He touched our lives and many lives. And I'd like to thank all the Evertonians that have connected with me on Twitter. Show me all your wonderful pictures, because every time you show me a picture of you and Kevin, he's got the same smile. He was one of the most genuine people. The things he used to say to me, he tried to teach me about crypto once. I still don't get it. He got so frustrated after about 20 minutes of trying to explain it. He went, PG, I've had enough. He's just like that. I've had enough. John, can you imagine in his tone when he went, PG, I've had enough?
I could just imagine. And he looked at me across his eye. Simon, don't bother, leave it.
Yeah, don't bother. He just go, I mean, I can't. He never actually called me a man.
Anyway, as Al goes,
I can't. He went, I can't. I love you, but I can't. It's like this, I remember.
But do you know what?
And we were honoured.
The people that I've spoken to, Arsenal and Everton, since he's died, the messages that people I've spoken to me that I've met over my times through him, and some of the guys, the Everton guys in the Winslow, whatever the rivalry might be, and it's a deep rivalry.
Yeah.
Through him, I've grown a real affection for both clubs. I can't help that. A lot of the Reds maybe not like me saying that, but I have. The people are people that I've got a lot of time for, and I think he created that. I think it would have been very difficult to have had that without him, but he created for me a whole friendship group and a group of people that I thought so much of from both clubs. And I'm fond of a lot of Blues and a lot of Evertonians.
He had an unerring ability to find the good spot in every person he connected with. And that was his quality. He would find the good in you, which sometimes you didn't even know you had yourself.
Yeah.
And that was, he was. I mean, I'm wearing the captain's armor. He was my captain. He was a captain in every sense of the word. Not just in a football sense, but
he was a natural leader in life.
He was a leader.
But just know this, Al. The first time Sorry, John. Let me just say,
because Al says things that trigger things in my mind that are just so right. I think he's so right about him finding the right thing, the good things for people. But don't you also think, Al, that because of the man he was and his stature and the way he was thought of and the fact he was always true, that one of the reasons I could go into the Everton pub or the Arsenal pub or go in and meet you and I are friends, if Kev vouched for you, people believed you were okay. They thought if he thinks you're all right, you're probably all right. So you can walk into the Lions Den of the Winslow and he goes, he's all right. Yeah, he might be a Red, but he's all right.
He's all right.
And they took his word for it.
100%.
He looked after us, didn't he? But the one thing I will say, Al, which I was going to say before, is first time. There's a shock. The first time I said to him, "Come on, why don't you bring a guest on?" He chose you, Al. No one else. He chose you. No, he chose Alan. We're having a moment. Red nose, be quiet. He chose you straight away.
Probably right. No, I know. I remember him
He
ringing
adored
me.
you.
I remember him ringing me and saying, will you come on and then do that? And I said, well, it's Arsenal. You know what I mean? I mean, because I have some great memories of Arsenal down the years. I remember being at Goodison when I can't think of the guy's name now, the full back, and he scored. We drew 2-2, and he scored an own goal in the last minute. Who was your left full
What
back?
year?
Would be
What
in the
year?
70s, late 70s,
Oh,
early 80s. In fact, probably late 70s. But we
love the way you get their fullback scoring an own goal into this, Al. I think that's
and I was, but like, and Charlie George, I remember talking to Kev about Charlie George moment, because I lived in a house with 8 Liverpudlians and me. That I was the only Evertonian. My dad and all my brothers, sisters, all Liverpudlians, and that Charlie George moment, and I remember Kev, and we were comparing it to his Anfield moment, and I ran into I had to watch the cup final in another room, and I ran in to the front room when Charlie George scored and lied down like Charlie George did on the floor.
1971. Yeah.
Yeah, and like it was, but just little stories like that. So Arsenal have always been a little bit special for me, So in a sense, it was the most fantastic combination, really, with Kev that I could have wished for, really, because Everton and Arsenal are two fantastic clubs, aren't they? And down the years, and the longest serving clubs. So
you're missing one.
Alan, was it Sammy Nelson?
No, it wasn't Sammy Nelson. No,
Sammy Nelson used to play for us.
It was like Pat Rice or somebody.
My dad would know. It could have been Pat Rice.
I don't know whether it was Pat Rice, but it was what anyway. But
it'll be there. John Devine, to be honest.
As I say, we drew 2-2, and he scored an own goal, and it was a lovely moment, But just bringing it back to Kev, is that as John says, so many times, it was like if you walked in with him or you were with him, it was just and I had it with a lot of players, like when I'd go to see him at other clubs, and like I saw him at West Brom, and he'd make you feel, but he would bring you into that situation that he was in. If he was with other people, he would bring you in like as if you were supposed to be there, and that was, in this job, in my job, it's very transient, I think is the word we would use. People come and go, and but the thing about Kev is that he was so rare as a person, and people will sit there and think, I'm sure, because when anything tragedy like this happens, people always talk well about people who've gone, but people have to really, really grasp, what this man was, and he was the most purest of human beings that you could ever wish to know, and I'm privileged to have known him. That's the way I look at it.
We all are.
I'm privileged to know him, and I know you are.
If we try and live up to him, Al, we'll all live better lives, to be honest.
Absolutely. We all need to be a bit more Kevin Campbell.
We all need to be a bit more Kevin Campbell, and I think on
Al, I had to laugh. Sorry,
I would try and end it.
Your captain's armband. Your captain's armband. That's a really lovely tribute. I landed back from holiday in Spain a couple of hours ago, and that's why I'm wearing my red-nosed John because I got a bit burnt.
I should have had my crown for Princess Guna.
Yeah.
Boys, it has been cathartic, wonderful, lovely, sad, every emotion going. I can't thank you enough for your wonderful stories and a lot of them I didn't know as well, even though I know so many of your stories. I'm sure there's hundreds and hundreds more. I'm definitely going to get you back on the podcast, old Red Nose, when we play Liverpool, and Alan when we play Everton. When we play Everton, I think there won't be a dry eye in the house at the Emirates or Goodison Park. And I'm hoping that everyone will sing Super Kevin Campbell, because he was.
And I bet you Liverpool will give him, due respect as well.
I do, yeah. I hope so, and I think they will. Listen, a lot of Liverpool fans I know were incredibly sad that, and I've not seen any comment by a Liverpool fan on social media.
Listen, I've had Spurs fans contact me, West Ham fans. Honestly, there's no one's ever got a bad word to say, which was the man. That's it. Just that aura of loveliness, funniness, kindness, and he's so deeply missed. My condolences go to his family, all his friends, all of us. especially Shirley and Karin as well.
And can I just mention Marcus as well there? Because Marcus,
yeah, absolutely,
has been, as well as Shirley. I call them the two angels. They've been remarkable. Just think it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, and that's very true. They've both been. I mean, they both stuck by him right the way through, physically next to him all the way through. They were tremendous.
Shows the man he was, and hopefully up there he's playing football with Rocky Rocastle.
Well, that would be a lovely thought. That would be really nice.
Taken too soon, both of them from us. So we're going to end this now.
With Ray Clemens blocking all their shots.
Blocking all their God. And Kevin bossing everyone around.
Finished, Amanda, he's never going to allow you to.
He's never going to let me finish, but I will, because I can mute him. That's the beauty of being in charge.
I'm going to get through this to that 89 you mentioned. That's all that matters.
I've not mentioned that. I nearly
he used
did.
to give me jip about that all the time. He used to say to me when he was going on the pod, he goes, "Watch this." He goes, "I'm going to get a talking about 89."
And the abuse I used to get, and I still do on here from the boys, whenever I mention Anfield 89, they say, "How long does it take?" It's been an hour and 15 minutes. Before I've mentioned it, and Kevin and I used to love talking about that. Kevin and I used to love talking about lots. We all did. We all miss him. Everyone does. What a man. What a man.
He introduced me to Pat Rice at the Emirates, and as he left me to chat to him, who I've got to say is the biggest gentleman I've ever met, the nicest man, and as he turned away to leave me, you probably know him, Albert, he was just such a gentleman, and chatting away, telling me stories. As Kev turns to speak to someone else, he goes to Pat Rice, he loves hearing about 89, and then off he walks.
Oh, I love that. I didn't know that, and I love that. He used to wind you up the whole time.
All the time.
The difference is he loved Everton. He didn't love Liverpool. He was brilliant.
Well, I didn't love Liverpool at all, no.
That's my one little regret, is not having you both on a pod together. It would have been box office.
It would have been loud.
John, thank you so much. It's my turn to speak now to end the show. Red Nose John, what can I say? I love you to pieces. You're always going to be there. We're always going to be there for each other. I know that. We have great memories. We've had wonderful times together as well. He loved you to pieces. He used to say to me all the time, "Wind up, Red Nose, wind up, Red Nose," all the time. And now we will carry on taking the mickey out of each other, moaning about VAR and who died for a penalty at Anfield and who died for a penalty at the Emirates, because the season starts up next month, and I'm sure we'll have our banter on Twitter too. Thank you so much for sharing your pictures, your stories, and your life with Super Kev. He loved you. Alan loved you just as much, and the stories about Everton, your Sky. I want to tell you one thing about Sky, and then I'm going to go. He was doing one of those Thursday shows once, and I said to him, "Do me a favour, try and get the word banana in, or princess. PG. I've got to be." No. He's like this. He did it though. He did it, and no one else knew. And I messaged him during the break, and that was the man he was. He was fun. He was lovely. Alan, he adored you. He adored both of you. He adored life. Taken too soon. For you, Super Kev, I'm going to try and end this without crying. For everyone that loved you, the Gooners, the Toffees, the Scousers, every football fan has never got a bad word to say about him. We love you, Super Kev. We always will. We'll never forget you. John and Al, thank you so much. And for everyone that's tuned in, I can't even believe I've got nearly 2,500 people watching this. This is absolutely incredible for me. As I said, we normally get 500-600. So thank you to everyone. And if you would love to subscribe to our show, because we will be featuring quite a bit of Arsenal and Everton and Liverpool, and come and join us. And we'd love to hear your Super Kev memories as well. Just come and just join the podcast. I don't even know what I'm saying because I'm so upset. It's been a wonderful show. Thank you to everyone. I really appreciate everyone that has joined us tonight. From the same old Arsenal, from Alan and John, we love you, Super Kev. Take care.